Hey there, welcome back for another deep dive. We're going to looking at GROK 2 today, this new AI. It's
Yeah.
well, everyone's talking about it.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
You've shared a bunch of articles about it, and
Yeah.
I've got to say some of this stuff is pretty mind-blowing.
It really is. What's fascinating about GROK 2 is that it really pushes the limits of what we thought AI could do with images.
Yeah.
Developed by Elon Musk and XAI.
Oh, yeah.
It's capable of generating like ultra realistic visuals,
Mhm.
even more so than those other AI image generators out there, like Midjourney and DALL-E.
Right.
But that's kind of where the similarities end.
That's what caught my eye too. It seems like
Yeah.
every article mentions this, like no restrictions aspect of GROK 2.
Yeah.
One even talked about someone using it to create images of copyrighted characters. Can you imagine just anyone whipping up pictures of Mickey Mouse or Superman doing that? Well, anything.
It really throws the whole concept of copyright on its head, and that's just one aspect of the ethical storm brewing around GROK 2.
Right.
This lack of oversight means it can potentially generate all sorts of controversial or even offensive content.
Yeah.
Stuff that other AI companies wouldn't touch.
Like depictions of violence,
Yeah.
hate speech, you name it. One article mentioned an experiment where someone prompted GROK 2 to depict world leaders, Macron, Pope Francis, Assad, Putin, and Trump, all in a conference room together.
Mhm.
And it just did it. No problem.
Crazy.
It's pretty unsettling to think anyone could do that.
Absolutely. And think about the potential for spreading misinformation, especially with elections coming up.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Imagine hyper-realistic images circulating that are completely fabricated, designed to manipulate public opinion.
Wow.
It's a whole new level of fake news we're talking about.
So on one hand, you have this incredible technological leap, but on the other, this potential Pandora's box of problems. And it seems like GROK 2 is going all in on that freedom, which some users are bound to find appealing.
Right. That's the dilemma, isn't it? It's almost a philosophical debate. Do we prioritize unfettered innovation? Or put up guardrails, even if it limits creativity? But we're not just talking about hypothetical harm here.
Right.
A study actually found that GROK 2 produced disinformation in 80% of its outputs, almost double the rate of other AI models.
Whoa, 80%.
Yeah.
That's a huge red flag, especially compared to how other tech giants are handling AI. Companies like Google and OpenAI are going in a totally different direction.
They're definitely taking a more cautious approach. Strict controls, transparency, dedicated ethics teams, the whole 9 yards. They're actively trying to mitigate the potential harms of AI and promote responsible use, which is a stark contrast to GROK 2's anything goes philosophy.
So we have these two drastically different approaches to AI development emerging, and it's playing out in real time. It's kind of a societal experiment, seeing what happens when you unleash this incredibly powerful technology with no strings attached.
Right. And it raises some pretty big questions for all of us. As AI gets more sophisticated, do we embrace this idea of unrestricted innovation, even with the risks? Or do we prioritize ethics and safety, even if it means potentially slowing down progress? Tough call, wouldn't you say?
It really is. It's like we're standing at a crossroads, and the choices we make now could have a huge impact on the future of AI. And speaking of tough calls, let's dive into this no restrictions aspect a little deeper. You mentioned copyright. But what about something like the right to one's own image? It seems like with GROK 2, anyone could potentially create realistic depictions of anyone else doing anything.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty scary thought.
That's a crucial point, and it cuts to the heart of what makes GROK 2 so controversial. It essentially throws the concept of individual consent out the window.
Yeah.
But before, even with deepfakes, there were limitations to how realistically you could manipulate someone's image. But with GROK 2, it's like those limitations have vanished overnight.
And that creates a whole new set of legal and ethical questions. Yeah. I mean, if someone creates a hyper-realistic image of you, doing something you never actually did, what recourse do you have? How do you even prove it's fake?
Right now, there's a lot of legal gray area surrounding these issues. We're essentially in uncharted territory, and that's what makes this whole GROK 2 situation so fascinating and potentially so dangerous. It's like we've opened a door to a whole new world, and we have no idea what's waiting on the other side.
Yeah, it's like the Wild West of AI out there.
That really is, and it's moving faster than our laws and ethical frameworks can keep up. That's why it's so important to be having these conversations right now, trying to understand the implications before things spiral out of control.
Okay, so we've talked about the risks, but what about the other side of the coin?
Yeah.
The free speech argument you mentioned earlier. Let's unpack that a bit. What's the rationale behind letting GROK 2 run wild, so to speak?
For some, it boils down to A fundamental belief in unfettered technological advancement. The idea is that any attempt to regulate or restrict AI is ultimately stifling innovation and creativity.
Right.
They see GROK 2 as a symbol of that freedom, a tool that allows for limitless expression, even if it means pushing boundaries that make some people uncomfortable.
I could see how that would appeal to some,
Yeah.
especially artists and creators who might be excited about the possibilities.
Yeah.
But where do we draw the line? If someone uses GROK 2 to create harmful or exploitative content, are we just supposed to shrug and say, well, that's free speech?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And there are no easy answers, even among those who support GROK 2's approach. There's a recognition that there needs to be some level of accountability.
Right.
The challenge is figuring out how to strike that balance, how to protect individual rights and prevent harm without stifling innovation or impinging on legitimate forms of expression.
It seems like a near impossible task, especially when you consider how quickly AI is evolving. It feels like every day there's a new breakthrough, a new capability that we haven't even begun to grapple with ethically.
You're right. It's a rapidly shifting landscape. And that's why it's so crucial for us to be having these conversations, not just among experts, but in society as a whole.
Right.
We need to be educated about the potential of AI, both good and bad. And we need to be actively involved in shaping how this technology is developed and deployed.
So what does that look like in practice? What can we as individuals do to make sure AI is used responsibly?
Well, first and foremost, we need to be informed. Educate yourself about how AI works, what it's capable of, and what the potential risks are. The more we understand about this technology, the better equipped we'll be to make informed decisions about its use.
And only just power, as they say.
Exactly. And beyond that, we need to be engaged. Don't be afraid to ask questions, challenge assumptions, and voice your concerns. The future of AI shouldn't be dictated by a handful of tech companies. It's conversation that needs to involve everyone.
I love that. Being active participants in shaping the future of AI, it's not just about passively accepting whatever technology is thrown at us, but about being thoughtful and critical about how we use it.
Precisely. And finally, I think it's important to remember that AI is ultimately a tool. It's a powerful tool to be sure, but it's up to us to decide how we use it.
Right.
We can use it to create, to connect, to solve problems, but we can also use it to manipulate, to exploit, to cause harm. The choice is ours.
That's a really powerful message. And it kind of brings us back to that crossroads we were talking about earlier. It seems like the path we choose, whether we prioritize unfettered innovation or responsible development, will determine what kind of future we build with AI.
I couldn't agree more. And that's why it's so important to be having these conversations, to be grappling with these tough questions, and to be actively shaping the role AI will play in our lives. It's not something we can afford. To be passive about.
Well said. Okay, so let's shift gears a bit and talk about some of the specific examples of GROK 2 in action. Earlier you mentioned an experiment where someone prompted it to create images of world leaders in a conference room. Can you walk us through that in a bit more detail?
Absolutely. This experiment really highlights the lack of ethical boundaries in GROK 2.
Okay.
The users simply asked the AI to depict French President Macron, Pope Francis, Bashar al-Assad, Vladimir Putin, and Donald Trump, all together in a conference room setting. And just like that, GROK 2 delivered.
No hesitation, no questions asked, it just generated the images, even though these are real people with real political implications surrounding their interactions. It's kind of mind-blowing, isn't it?
It is, and it really underscores potential for misuse, especially in the realm of political manipulation. Imagine these images being used to spread disinformation during an election or to create fake news stories. That could have real-world consequences. It's a chilling thought.
It is. And it makes you wonder, what other scenarios are out there that we haven't even considered yet? What are the unintended consequences of this kind of technology?
That's the thing about AI. It's evolving so rapidly that it's almost impossible to predict all the ways it could be used, both for good and for bad. And that's why it's so crucial to be vigilant, to be aware of the potential risks, and to be actively engaged in shaping how this technology is developed and deployed.
So it's not just about reacting to what's already happened, but about trying to anticipate what might happen in the future.
Exactly. We need to be proactive, not reactive. We need to be thinking about the ethical implications of AI before problems arise, not after the damage is done.
Okay, so let's talk about solutions. What can we do, both as individuals and as a society, to mitigate the potential risks of AI like GROK 2?
Well, one promising avenue is the development of technological safeguards. For example, researchers are working on ways to detect AI-generated content, such as digital watermarks, or other forms of authentication.
So kind of like a way to verify the authenticity of an image or video.
Exactly. And this is where companies like Google and OpenAI, with their focus on responsible AI development, could play a crucial role.
Right.
They have the resources and the expertise to develop these kinds of safeguards and integrate them into their platforms.
That makes sense. But what about the legal side of things? Are there any laws or regulations in place to address the potential harms of AI-generated content?
That's an area that's still very much in flux. Lawmakers around the world are grappling with how to regulate AI, and there's a lot of debate about the best approach.
It seems like it would be incredibly difficult to keep up with the pace of technological change. By the time you write a law, the technology has already moved on.
You're absolutely right. That's one of the biggest challenges. But I think it's important to remember that laws and regulations are just one part of the solution. We also need to focus on education, awareness, and fostering a culture of responsible AI use.
So it's a multi-pronged approach. Technology, law, and ethics all working together.
Exactly. And I think it's also important to emphasize the role of individual responsibility. We all have a part to play in ensuring that AI is used for good, not harm.
What does that look like in practice? What can we as individuals do?
Well, for starters, we can be more critical consumers of information. Don't just accept everything you see online. At face value, question the source, consider the context, and be wary of anything that seems too good to be true or too sensationalized.
So be skeptical, do your research, and don't be afraid to ask questions.
Exactly. And beyond that, we can also advocate for responsible AI development, support companies that are prioritizing ethical considerations, and voice your concerns about those that aren't.
So use our voices and our choices to shape the future of AI.
Exactly. The future of AI isn't predetermined. It's something we're all actively shaping with our actions and our choices.
This has been a really insightful conversation. I feel like I've learned a lot about the potential, the risks, and the responsibility that comes with this incredibly powerful technology.
It's been a pleasure discussing this with you. And I think the most important takeaway is that AI is a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad.
Right.
It's up to us, as individuals and as a society, to ensure that it's used wisely and ethically.
Well said. Now, before we wrap up this deep dive into GROK 2, I wanted to take a moment to highlight a few things that are happening behind the scenes here at the deep dive. We're always striving to improve the show and bring you the most insightful content. And we're really excited about some of the things we have in the works.
Yes, we have some exciting things happening.
First off, we'd love for you to connect with us on other platforms. You can find the deep dive on YouTube, Spotify, and Amazon Music.
Oh, nice.
Subscribe and leave us a review. It really helps us reach a wider audience and keeps these important conversations going.
We appreciate your support.
And speaking of support, we're also thrilled to announce that we've launched a crowdfunding campaign to support a future photo exhibition showcasing the incredible power and potential of AI. In the art world, we believe this exhibition will spark important conversations about the intersection of technology and creativity, and we invite you to join us on this journey. You can find more information about the campaign on our website.
We can't wait to share this incredible project with you.
So stay tuned for more updates on the exhibition and all the other exciting things happening at the Deep Dive.
Back to GROK 2.
Right. Where were we? Yes, you were about to tell us about another real-world example of GROK 2 in action, one that really highlights the ethical gray areas we've been discussing.
Absolutely. This particular case involves a well-known celebrity who found themselves the subject of a series of incredibly realistic, but entirely fabricated images generated using GROK 2.
Oh, wow. This is getting real. Tell me more.
These images depicted the celebrity in various compromising situations, engaging in behavior that was completely out of character.
Sounds like a nightmare scenario.
It was. These images spread like wildfire online, causing significant damage to the celebrity's reputation and career.
And because the images were so realistic, it must have been incredibly difficult to prove they were fake.
Exactly. And that's where the real danger lies. GROK 2 has made it incredibly easy to create convincing fakes, and it's often very difficult, if not impossible, to disprove them.
So what happened? What did the celebrity do?
Well, they took legal action. But it was a long and arduous process. And even though they were eventually able to clear their name, the damage was already done.
That's so disheartening. It really highlights the potential for harm with this technology.
It does, and it underscores the need for greater awareness, education, and safeguards to protect individuals from these kinds of malicious attacks.
Okay, so we've talked about the risks, the ethical dilemmas,
Yeah.
and some real-world examples of how GROK 2 is being used, both for good and for bad. But let's not forget that AI, in general, has enormous potential for positive impact as well.
Absolutely. AI is already revolutionizing fields like healthcare, education, and scientific research. It's helping us solve complex problems, improve efficiency, and create new possibilities.
So it's not all doom and gloom.
Not at all. It's about finding that balance, that sweet spot where we can harness the power of AI for good while mitigating the risks and ensuring ethical use.
And that brings us back to the choices we make.
Yeah.
As individuals, as a society, we have a responsibility to steer AI in the right direction, to ensure that it's used, to enhance our lives, not diminish them.
Well said. It's a collective effort, a journey we're all on together. And the more informed and engaged we are, the better the outcome will be.
This has been a truly fascinating deep dive into the world of GROK 2 and AI ethics. I feel like I've gained a much deeper understanding of the complexities and the challenges we face as this technology continues to evolve.
It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey. We hope you found it insightful and thought-provoking. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode, so feel free to leave us a comment or connect with us on social media. And don't forget to subscribe to The Deep Dive on YouTube, Spotify, and Amazon Music to stay up to date on all our latest deep dives into the world of technology, science, and culture. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.
It really feels like we're at a tipping point with AI. GROK 2 has thrown a lot of these ethical issues into sharp relief, and it's forcing us to confront some uncomfortable truths about the technology we're creating. But it's not all doom and gloom. There's a lot of potential for good here too.
That's a key point to remember. AI isn't inherently good or bad. It's a tool, a reflection of our own intentions and capabilities. And while GROK 2 has shown us some of the darker possibilities, it's also sparked a crucial conversation about responsible development and the need for ethical guardrails. And that's where I find myself wrestling a bit. I can see the arguments on both sides. The push for unrestricted innovation, the fear of stifling creativity versus the need to protect individuals, prevent harm, and maintain some semblance of control over this incredibly powerful technology. It's a tough balancing act.
It absolutely is, and I think that's where the conversation needs to shift now.
But
We've identified the problems, we've explored the potential dangers. Now we need to start focusing on solutions.
okay.
What are the concrete steps we can take, both as individuals and as a society, to ensure that AI is used ethically and responsibly?
So let's brainstorm a bit. What comes to mind? We've touched on a few ideas already. Technological safeguards, legal frameworks, education, individual responsibility. But how do we actually put those into practice?
Well, on the technological front, we need to invest in research and development aimed at creating tools that can help us identify and mitigate the harms of AI-generated content. Things like digital watermarking, provenance tracking, and improved detection algorithms could go a long way toward curbing the spread of disinformation and protecting individuals from malicious attacks.
Right, so we need ways to verify the authenticity of digital content, especially images and videos. That makes sense. But what about the legal side of things? Can laws keep up with something as fast-moving as AI?
That's the challenge, isn't it? Traditional legal frameworks often struggle to keep pace with technological advancement, but that doesn't mean we should throw up our hands and give up.
Wow.
We need to start thinking of new approaches to regulation, ones that are more flexible, adaptable, and focused on outcomes rather than specific technologies.
I get that. So maybe instead of trying to regulate AI itself, we focus on regulating the specific harms it can cause, like the spread of disinformation, the violation of privacy, or the creation of harmful content.
Exactly. It's about shifting the focus from the technology to the impact. And that might require a more collaborative approach, involving experts from various fields, law, technology, ethics, social sciences, working together to develop solutions that are both effective and ethically sound.
It sounds like a massive undertaking,
Yeah.
but one that's absolutely necessary.
Hmm.
We can't just sit back and hope for the best. We need to be proactive,
Yes.
thoughtful, and deliberate about shaping the future of AI.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that's where the power of individual action comes in.
Right.
We all have a role to play in this. We can educate ourselves about AI. We can support companies that are prioritizing ethical development. We can advocate for responsible regulation. And we can be more critical consumers of information.
Right, so it's about being informed, engaged, and responsible. It's about recognizing that AI is not some abstract force out of our control, but something we're all actively shaping with our choices and our actions.
Exactly. And the more informed and engaged we are, the better the outcome will be for all of us.
Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into GROK 2 and the ethics of AI image generation. It's been a fascinating and at times a little unsettling journey, but one that I think we all needed to take.
I agree. It's an ongoing conversation, one that will continue to evolve as the technology does. But the more we talk about these issues, the better prepared we'll be to navigate the challenges and harness the potential of AI for good.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it's given you some food for thought, and we encourage you to continue exploring this fascinating, crucial topic.
Keep questioning, keep learning, and keep the conversation going.
That's right. Until next time, stay curious.